Let's look at Sprint 6. So Sprint 6 is going to change and vary depending on what unit you're in. In the even units, the Sprint 6 focus on visual literacy. These are graphing skills that we know learners need to practice in order to develop proficiency in. In the even units, the learners are practicing note-taking skills. So Sprint 6 is really about learners practicing those testing skills and those learning to learn skills that many of them have gaps in that have a huge impact in their ability to test well. Let's look at this particular example from Unit 8, Sprint 6. So the sprint again is about practicing visual literacy. The first word provides that introduction. It says prepare with context. Let me just make a note really quickly. Anytime you see a prepare with context slide, this is information that just gives you context about the situation, the learning situation that learners are going to be presented with. You may read these slides. You may simply talk through those slides as a facilitator. The goal of this is that you have that information. You could have learners read those slides. Whatever you do, the point is to be engaging throughout that process, but these two slides in this particular case simply give you the context of visual literacy skills in the workplace. So this prepares you with the context that says, hey, this is how we use visual literacy in the workplace. They review what bar graphs are and the information that are presented on bar graphs, and then it starts the review. Hey, here's the parts of a bar graph. Remember, there's a title, there's data. This works through the parts of a bar graph. Remember that you have a little icon here, which means you have learner resources, unit resources that the learners can use. Then they review a QAR strategy. That's a question and answer relationship testing strategy. This is a learning to learn skill. If you see the blue brain in the top corner, that means it's a cognitive learning to learn skill, and there's a separate guide that you can go to teach those skills. Then it walks through that process of teaching and using the QAR skill. Important thing to note, anytime a learning to learn skill is first introduced in the curriculum, it will go through a step by step of that skill. You can see this in Unit 8 as it walks through QAR. It's going to go through every step of QAR. In the future, when you see that skill, it may just give you the beginning piece of that. Hey, use QAR to review this information, and it gives you the symbol, but it may not necessarily work through the steps. Absolutely depends on what unit you're in and if the unit has already introduced a skill. So in this particular unit, they do use QAR, and QAR, by the way, is the answer is right there. It's a think and search, author and you, and on your own. These are different mechanisms of exploring multiple choice questions to help you find an answer. So this helps you work through that process. They analyze a bar graph using that information, and then they complete a learner workbook activity. Then they practice some more of that visual literacy through a series of questions that they are answering in their learner workbook. Okay, so why do we use bar graphs? Which type of data is best presented in a bar graph? The point of this sprint is for learners to practice a very specific visual literacy skill. In this case, it's a bar graph, and to develop some proficiency in that skill. Oftentimes, when learners are practicing a skill, they are flooded with different types of data, like bar graphs and pie charts and line charts. All of that data is important. This particular sprint and all of the sprints in Lesson 1 take just one of those skills, like bar graphs, and really helps you work through that skill at depth, separate from all the other visual literacy skills, so you can really concentrate on just that skill. And then over the course of the curriculum, as they've explored bar graph and pie graph and line graph, they will have developed and filled in some of those academic gaps that they have related to those skills. So this is a sprint that over the course of the curriculum is going to allow them to develop and practice some very concentrated skills across visual literacy.